The Garden Show featuring Dan Van Eno and gardening experts Paul Hollis and Randy Robeson from Rail City Garden Center on Briarley Way, just off Vista and I-80 in Sparks, on News Talk 780 KOH and KKOH.com. The views, opinions, or advice offered by this show's host do not necessarily reflect those of News Talk 780 KOH or its parent company, Cumulus Media.
Good morning, Reno. It is Mike Bosma, your business savvy CPA, coming to you from the KOH studio. Hey, you Garden Show listeners, you want to hang tight and hang on. Today's installment of Bosma On Business, it's going to be action-packed. Yeah, we're kind of toggling off of some of the more recent topics. You know, if you listen to last week's show, go to KKOH.com, the on-demand tab, or Bosma On Business. You want to catch any of those prior shows. But last week, we did the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s of, you know, how to buy a business. Went through some examples. Of course, as fate would have it, I have a listing. I have a paving company that I have for sale. You can go to bizbuysell.com, check that out there. Or check out my Facebook page for the link to the listing. But yeah, as fate would have it, I'm trying to sell a paving business. If you're in the paving vertical, or if you want to make all the money of an entrepreneur, I've got a business for you. But the reason I mention it is this last week was a little fun. I had a meeting with a gentleman who owned a paving business here in Reno, and then wanted to talk about the paving business I had for sale. And it's a small town, so we got to talking. And then I had another person who was interested in my paving company, but found out he was also buying the other guy's paving company. So hey, it seems like there's a move afoot if your paving company's out there. But the way that we do it each and every Saturday is we get you a little bit smarter about all things business. And today we're going to toggle to the strategy part of running a business. One of the things that is common feedback I get from my clients and prospects and just out and about in the city is that people are the hardest part of making your business magic happen. And finding talent, retaining talent, and having an engaged workforce is really what struggles most business owners. So, and that's where on today's installment of Bosma On Business, we're just going to talk about how to create a people strategy to be able to go out and find, attract, and retain talented people that don't cost you a fortune. Anyway, this is really just a springboard from a session that I'm doing with the Chamber of Commerce, Reno Sparks Chamber of Commerce, under their educational branch of that organization, helping business owners bulletproof their business. We do this once a month. This last Thursday, I had a classroom full of entrepreneurs that were really wanting to sharpen their skills in the area of people. So we're just going to recap that. And I thought, it was really good content. It'd be good to reiterate here so that there's only so many people that listened in that session on Thursday. And it was good content, if I do say so myself. There was a lot of good feedback on it. So when we talk about people, you just have to, and that is, these are your employees, people that make the magic happen every day. You just have to ask yourself these two seminal questions. Okay? And is your team happy and engaged? Now, they could be happy today because it's Saturday and they're maybe not working, but are they engaged? I think as before the show, we're pushing out a few of the last stragglers for tax returns. Those are due Monday. And, we're kind of on we're landing the plane for Monday. So, we've been working weekends for a while now. And so, sent an email out on a client to ask the staff, hey, can you make this change, this tax return? Because this is above my pay grade. I can't figure it out. So, when they jump, they respond right back at you like, yep, I'll jump right on it. I appreciate that. They're engaged. Of course, working on a Saturday, maybe not so much on the happy, but, we have a deadline, and we all know things don't happen without deadlines. But the biggest question when you talk about your team, your employees, and it is this question. It's, would you enthusiastically rehire everyone on your team? Not would you rehire everyone, but would you enthusiastically, of course, no brainer. I'd hire them back in a second. And I know what you're thinking, you business owners out there. You're like, well, everybody's got some hair, a little rough around the edges. And guess what? Your team is thinking the exact same thing about you, Mr. and Mrs. Boss. That's just how that goes. And so there's a common phrase of art that we talk about when we talk about talent or people, and we talk about the bus, and now that's not getting run over by the bus. That is having the right people on the bus. And so when you look at that question that I asked you, so would you enthusiastically rehire these people? And then you'd say, well, yes, I would. Those are the people that you want on your bus. And then later today, we're going to talk about how that bus works. And we all know that if you have the right people on the right bus, but they may not be in the right seat on the right bus. And the story goes, there's an integral part of our team that has been with me for almost a decade now. But when she got brought onto the team, her primary role was project management. And I remember this is a number of years ago. She was sitting in my office crying about, I hate project management. These people are adults. Why can't they keep track of their own stuff? And I realized in that moment I was either going to lose a talented, important person of the team, because you can't be in a situation that sucks for any amount of time without deciding to go a different direction. So I just repurposed her role. I said, well, what is she uniquely gifted at or uniquely good at? And we changed the trajectory of her entire career, entire time with the firm. And I remember she was like, well, I just feel like such a failure because you're taking me off of project management. And I said, you're a valued part of the team, but this is not what your gifting is. And I know that long-term you can't have people working in areas outside of their gifting. And it'd be good. It's just not a positive thing. So what we're going to talk about is, again, talking about the people part of the equation, your business, and some of these culture things that are just vitally important to set a trajectory for your business. And this is all based on the Entrepreneurs Organization Accelerator Program. We have a great accelerator chair. His name is Joanne Blake and Phil Mahoney, two great entrepreneurs in their own right, and they're leading that charge and helping business owners with roughly $250,000 or more of revenue to get to that $1 million mark. And did you know that only 4% of all businesses ever make it to $1 million in revenue? Just 4%. So, this accelerator program and who I'm speaking to right now is the 96% that are trying to grow and scale your business so that they can get over that $1 million revenue threshold. Because, and it's kind of I'd say accepted is that once you get to $1 million, you can't usually generally do that on your own. You got to have employees and teams and systems, because, below that, you can sell your services and do your thing. And God bless you. That's good. But if you want to have something that ultimately hits the other part of my world, which is business brokerage, you got to have something to sell, and you can't sell yourself. Otherwise, you just become an employee. Well, I guess maybe you do sell yourself. Anyway. So, by the way, my producer's telling me phone lines are open, 852-8255, 852-TALK. If you want to weigh in on what the people part, what is your most frustrating thing about your employees, and what is the thing that you love about your employees? You just call in, weigh in. We'll get you online and just have a chitty chat. That's what we call it. So one of the things I want to do is just explain this concept of core values. So when we talk about culture and values, that oftentimes, how does the saying go? If you do not have a destination, you'll get there eventually, right? You're just going to meander back and forth, to and fro. And so if setting the values for your business is really, that ability to set a course and say, okay, are we there yet? So there's core values of the company called Rockspace. And I'm just going to read these off, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. So, but it's fanatical support, proceeds or results first, embrace change, passion, keep your promises, friends and family. So those are core values of Rackspace. And so the reason it's so important to have core values is, it drives your decisions in leadership to know if you're on track or not, if you're on course or not. And I'll just share with you just anecdotally, some of how we're living that at Keystone CPA. So, one of our core values, is that, we partner with people that need us and value us. So the third leg of that stool, by the way, is they can afford to pay for us. But we back off of that one if people need us and value what we're doing, and we help people all the time. As listeners of the show, they'll come in from those free 1-hour consultations and they'll say, "I'm in a jam," and we help them. In fact, there was a nice couple, and they were in a kind of a bet. They had prepared their own tax returns. They were in a tussle, for lack of a better term, with the IRS, and they just needed to know, like, what should we do? Should we pay this? We're kind of feeling like we're getting hostage. We can't figure out what the IRS problem is. In the course of that 1 hour, we got their problem solved, and they're like, "What do you owe?" I said, "Well, we give that to it's kind of our gift to the universe. We give that hour to people that want and need us. We give it to you, no charge." And so they're like, "But I don't need anything else." I go, "That's fine. That's what we do." They sent me a very nice bottle of scotch, so I appreciate that. But speaking of scotch, when you come back, we're talking about the people part of your business equation and how to drive culture and values so that you're proud of your business. When we come back, we call it Bosma On Business. Newstalk 780 KOH. Welcome back to Bosma On Business. Your host, Mike Bosma, talking about setting a culture that you want to intentionally inspire people inside your organization, and a little off the beaten track. But as I mentioned before the break, I thought good content. How do you riddle the people part of the equation? And we talked about the bus before the break, and having the right people on the bus. But we're going to talk about now is having the right people in the right seats. That means, are they doing the right things in your organization? And that's where I appreciate Entrepreneurs Organization. I've been a member for forever, and just how I've learned different ways to manage even my own mindset and how to approach things. I mean, there's a moment years ago, and I was just frustrated with the whole people part of the equation, and I just had to have a hard conversation with myself that why do people quit? People don't quit jobs; they quit leaders. And so when people would leave, I just have to ask myself, what could I have done to not have them leave? Well, I work with accountants, darn good accountants, and I had a tendency to maybe freak out, not be so kind if people made a mistake. And I just realized, with benefit of hindsight, that my job is to catch mistakes, make sure that everything goes out the door 100% right 100% of the time, and to train staff so that they can do the same. So if they're not, I had to take it as my own personal initiative to say, well, I just didn't train them, give them the tools to be successful. Now, that's different than what I used to do, which was chew on them for making a mistake. And then they quit. I could go back to, person after person after person over the years where I'm like, yeah, that's the project that blew up. And I chewed on them. And then shortly thereafter, they said they're going a different direction and leaving. And I like, well, and think of it this way, as we talk about, your employees, that I'm certain business owners, right, it could be some of the most frustrating things you've ever done. But do people intentionally frustrate you? Most of the time not. People are just trying to do their jobs, keep their head down, stay out of the crossfire. And so, and that's where you just sometimes have to celebrate that, you've got people that have believed in you, even when they do things that maybe are a little left of center or right of center, but not right center, right? So, and as we talk about, how to identify those people, and you can think right now of all the people in your organization, would you enthusiastically rehire them? Yes or no? If the answer is no, can you retrain or retool to be able to get them so that you would, or what behaviors would need to change in order to, change that I really don't want to rehire them to I would enthusiastically. Now, we all know most of the time you cannot change people. You can only change yourself. You can only change how you look at stuff. But oftentimes, believing in people is the genesis of having great people, and people want to be believed in. And so, and a lot of times when we talk about inspiring people, it is empowering them to do things that you could not do by yourself. So by that, I mean, the reason we hire people is so that your business has more ability to impact positively your customers. And so you're training your people to be able to help facilitate that process. And so, and there's a concept of identification of the right people. And this concept is called top grading, which is, you've got A, B, and C players. Your A players, they're rock stars. They are mission critical to your success. They know it, you know it, and you have a great relationship. But we call it the C player trap, which is, you got a B player. Sometimes there's C player, maybe they're B player. You look at your business like, what would happen? Could I fire this person? I want to fire this person. This person causes you more stress. You wake up at 2:00 in the morning thinking about, oh my gosh, that person, what did they do or didn't do I'm going to have to mess with today. And this concept of the C player trap is where they bring things to the organization and you're like, well, it's not terminal, but you're not going to get to where you want to be as a business owner with them on the bus. And so, this concept is really about retain, coach, warn, move on, right? Fire quickly. That's why you have to hire slowly, right? You have to make sure, you have a real sense of that this is going to be magic to bring somebody on. Because otherwise, I'll tell you, if you've not had to go through this process, you're lucky. But yeah, the process of offboarding people, right? The metrics are out there. It costs you a ton of money to be able to refill or replace somebody's role. And does that mean that you should keep them there? No, it just means you didn't do a good enough job hiring in the first place. So retain, coach, warn, move on. Fire quickly. If you have to make hard decisions, then make hard decisions. Cut bait. And probably and it's interesting. Somebody in class when I was teaching this class at the Chamber of Commerce, they said, well, is there legal liability problems? If you let somebody go and all the stuff. And I remember saying it's like you cannot let fear hold you captive. You cannot let fear hold you captive. If you're operating from a position of fear, you make mistakes. I make mistakes. When I'm afraid of making a decision, I'm not operating from strength and moving forward. I'm in retreat and moving backwards, and I'm in a vulnerable position. So you have to understand where your strengths are, and then make a decision and move on. And that's where, if you think about it, when talking about A, B, and C players, can we get B players to be A players? Can we get C players to be A players? That's where, when we talk about retooling and getting people, maybe the right people on the bus in the wrong seat. And, I had, an employee and their first year at the firm, they were failing. It was a train wreck, and we just kind of like, okay, you do you. And so we just, kind of keep it very objective. Hey, you're just not producing, and there was this moment when we're doing the evaluations now on our practice, which I think is the best practice. We do 360-degree evaluations. Everybody evaluates everybody. Well, and when I do my evaluation, when I read my evaluations, usually I do so with a glass of bourbon. It helps take the edge off. So because they're like, because it's anonymous, right? So people are like, okay, now take your shot. And what I've appreciated about people that take the time to provide constructive feedback on my performance as their leader is that they're investing in me, just like I invest in them. And so this is like, it's a great way to be able to create a sense of clarity of purpose in the organization, because it means that there's nobody here that's perfect. We all are trying to find our way, and we're all trying to do a little bit better tomorrow than we did today, right? We own our mistakes quickly. We brush it off and we move forward. Right? That's how it goes. And so this one person in her first year, and she was doing some work for one of my businesses, and then she disappeared. And she kind of has this bad habit of that, and she disappeared for kind of a long amount of time. And when it came, I needed to get my stuff, and all of a sudden, I can go in, I could see that it wasn't done, so I had to assign that to somebody else. Now, I didn't give that a pass. Some of you business owners are like, I'd fire him right away. Well, I understand. You'll bear with me. But I just like, well, I don't need to decide that today. Today, I need to get my stuff done. So we got it done, reassigned it, and then when we went through her performance evaluation, and comment after comment, cannot be trusted to show up. Cannot, don't give time sensitive work because it may not get done. All this stuff, and she's just like, I get it, I suck. Walking out there, I go, I don't think you have a seat. We're not done yet. And so I says, if you just are in this kind of defeated, I'm a C player, maybe even a D player in that moment. You're a C player, and you're going to quit or I'm going to fire you. I just said, what you're missing is that the people that stepped in and filled in for you when you disappeared, and they already had work to do. And so when we come back, what we're going to do is I'm going to say, this is how you spin that to turn a C player to an A player. It's Bosma On Business, Newstalk 780, KOH. Welcome back to Bosma On Business. Your host, Mike Bosma. Talking about the people part of the equation, if you have a pressing tax issue, phone lines are open, 852-8255, 852-TALK, 1-800-564-KKOH. Maybe you're stuck on something, or you need some last minute tax advice. File that tax return on Monday, or maybe you can't file it on Monday, and you need a backup plan. Well, we have all those things. That's what we do. It's interesting. I was I purchased a firm. I mentioned it last week. Purchased a firm back east, and that was having some financial difficulties. And a couple days before September 15th, they shut their doors and left about 400 people in the wind for getting their taxes filed. And empathetically, I'm like, man, I could just only imagine the mess. You're a business owner. Hey, where's my return? Where's my return? It's due. And then, wait, there's nobody. What do you mean you're out of business? Well, now I go to a complete scramble mode. I got to go, not only get my stuff back from my former accountant, I got to find somebody. Of course, somebody shows up at my doorstep, 3 days before the due date, saying I need this done. Unfortunately, I just can't do it. It's not going to happen. So I have a partner. His name's Bob Marsh. He's been on the show out of Naples, Florida. And we said, hey, we think we can get you some love on hurricane disaster relief, but you definitely qualify for reasonable cause exception for penalties. And so we've been working night and day now to get all these people's taxes filed and caught up. And, and it is interesting, though, and we talk about the people part of it, is these people, these employees, this former firm, they were told on the 13th that, they're shutting down the office, that, everybody's effective immediately is laid off. And so, but they were like, well, we have all these tax returns. And they're like, hey, that's not your problem. We're out of business. And so a goodly amount of these people stayed and worked without pay to finish as many tax returns as they could before the due date. Like, these are good people, so unfortunately they're part of the team now because I hired them all. But, and I think, and that's where they appreciated that, and I paid them retroactive back to the last day of pay with our old firm. And I just said, you guys are good people, and we can. And so just, but be part of the team moving forward. So now we have more people in the East than we have in the West. And helping, help well over 100 people that, hired us to get their returns done. And, it's been, I would say probably the hardest thing I've done, but, in my life, because, we're working double time, but also probably the best thing I've ever done, trying to help people out of this bad spot, and people appreciate it. But one of the things that I found is that, that there's just a lot of things that we do as a CPA firm that most CPAs don't do. They have no idea. And I'll just give an example of one of those. I had a person, they owned a marketing company, owner made about $1 million a year. He was a sole proprietorship. Now, I know as a business owner or as a business broker, it's harder to sell sole proprietorships than entities. So it's hard to pull that apart. It's also harder to defend a sole proprietorship from an IRS audit perspective than it is an entity. Oh, there's a bunch of reasons. But I'm like, so I showed him. I'm like, well, just put your, go ahead and, create an entity, put the business in the entity, make an S election, and be an S corp. You have to pay yourself a reasonable wage. But I just showed him the math. I'm like, if you do this, with qualified business income deduction, Section 199 Cap A, pay yourself about $300,000. Remember the premise: making $1 million, pay yourself $300,000 a W-2 wage, which is the fair value of the services you're rendering. You can now you're the only employee. You can put $300,000 in your defined benefit plan. So now you've just reduced your taxable income from $1 million to $700,000, and you need that $300,000 in wages, and now you qualify for another $140,000 of deduction for a qualified business income deduction. At rate, that's $50,000 just because you just structure your affairs to take advantage of the tax laws. There is zero risk in that environment. It's not like we're doing anything hanky. It is just being smart about taxes. I was just seeing that every day now. I'm like, oh my God, people love it. They're like, oh my gosh, I always thought there was, I was paying too much tax. Yeah, and they're doing all these kind of shady things. Like, you don't need this. This is the nuts and bolts about tax planning. Just be smart. Work within the rules that you have. Same thing. People that are C corporations, like, oh yeah, I get the 21% tax break. I go, yeah, but when you pull the money out, you're up over 40. You can be at 30% if you're an S corp. Like, just make an S election. It's not hard. So, reduce your taxes by 25%. Everybody does that. But anyway, I digress, or maybe progress. But we're talking about taking C players to A players. So before the break, I was talking to you about this, one of the harder, annual evaluation I was doing with one of the team. Her first year when she disappeared for a goodly amount of time and kind of dropped the ball in the work she was doing. So, and it was interesting. I know some of you out there, you're like, oh, just fire. I hear you. But you know what? What firing somebody does to the rest of the team, they just know they're one mistake away from being on the cutting block. And I don't think that's healthy, especially in today's environment. I think people want to know that, to have the freedom to do the best they can, but have the freedom to, like, gosh, if I screw up, I'm not fired. People make mistakes, man. Is that how you, if I got fired as the boss because I made a mistake, I guess I'd be unemployed like everybody else. Like, we all make mistakes. We're all trying to do better. So when I'm taking the C player, talking to her, when she's trying to, like, boo-hoo, I suck, I get it. I go, no, that's not it. I go, what you did in that season, because you had your personal life happened, and you had to tap out for a minute. Fine, but you didn't tell anybody. That's a problem. Don't do that again. But the bigger part of it, I said, the other people that had to pick up that work and do it, they were already busy. So they worked extra overtime so that you can go check out. And I go, that's what we do. It's who we are. We're going to stand in the gap and help you because we care for you. You're part of the family. But if you walk out of here and just think that, oh, well, I suck, then you've missed the lesson. I go, the lesson is that you have to go back and thank all those people that saved your bacon and did all this work, and that you're going to have to, in your own mind, say, when there's a moment where I can help them, I'm all over it because these people really care about me. And it transformed her thinking. And she went from a C player to an A player. And because then, and then there was an opportunity where she was needed, and she was she was all over it. And I go, and good on you, right? Because she understood, she appreciated what somebody had done for her, and she was paying it back. And then she moved from paying it back to paying it forward. And that, then all of a sudden now she's a very engaged part of the team. And yeah, I could have cut her loose, but you're either going to have to deal with this stuff for the people that you hire to replace her or her. Embrace the devil that you know. You know who taught me that? When I was, all the mess in Israel right now, and my thoughts and prayers go out to those, just tragic situation. I was there and in Israel with John Ferrahi. He takes a group every year, and John Ferrahi, one of the significant shareholders of the Atlantis, and you think about that trouble, and I was sitting at the Golan Heights, and right next to a bomb shelter, and they were talking about when they took Golan Heights and why they did that, and talking about Syria. That's that they're enemies, and they had rockets aimed at each other. And I said, well, are you supporting the overthrow of the Syrian government? And they're like, no, it's always better to deal with the devil you know. And I just thought that's wise. This is, you talk about employees and the team, you're like, better to deal with the devil you know. So, because otherwise you have to deal with the same stuff with somebody else. And so that's where we're talking about this concept of top grading, which is, how do you hire the best, and then how do you develop the best? And one of the things that I tell you that is transformational in my life, in my business, we hired a lady, her name's Colleen Morrison. She's our chief people officer. She's in Austin, Texas. Now, you might think, well, Mike, I forgot you're a CPA firm in Reno. Why did you hire your chief people person in Austin, Texas? Did you know that Austin has the number 1 rated accounting school in the United States? And I'll tell you, the UNR, God bless them, but they just do not create enough great accountants. And and many of them leave the area once they've graduated. So if you're a great accountant and you're in the Reno area, I'm actually looking to bring somebody on as a partner. And so talk to me, 775-786-4900, mbosma@keystone.cpa. But it's like, it's a great life, great opportunity. We have more work that we can do. But I need somebody to we have a great team. I need somebody who's seasoned, kind of, old like me, or, experience, at least, minimum 15 years of experience in public accounting, and sharp, smart on all things business, because that's what we do at the CPA firm. But I knew if the only thing we're going to be, the only limitation we have as a firm to grow and scale this thing, we anticipate being a national firm, is talent, is the people to do the work, the people to interface with our clients. And if all of those people live in Austin, Texas, because now we're a 100% virtual firm, then I'm going to have my chief recruiter where all the good accountants are, right? Because I have team, I have professional spread all throughout the U.S. and some international, because that is just, since COVID, the world has changed. And so it's like, it's great to go get a cup of coffee, but it's just more expedient, more efficient to jump on a Teams or a Zoom call and talk about stuff. So, and I think especially kind of the work we're doing is, people need it throughout the United States. We shouldn't just have good tax planning for those in Reno. So, but that's where, I think as we come back, I'm going to tell you that number 1 thing that you need to know for the people part of the equation. It's Bosma on Business. It's like 780 KOH. Welcome back to Bosma on Business. Your host, Mike Bosma. It's an interesting thing. I was talking about this firm that I acquired last month back in Tennessee. And what's interesting, though, is they had more salespeople than CPAs. And it dawned on me, I thought I'd just give, I guess for the benefit of our listeners, just a little heads up. And that is why it's important that there's only three types of preparers that you should be engaged with to do your taxes. Just as kind of a public service announcement, which is one, they're either a certified public accountant, that's a CPA. They're an enrolled agent. That means that they've taken a test and have been, given the good housekeeping seal of approval by the IRS, or a lawyer. And so either a CPA, enrolled agent, or a lawyer. Only 3 people that should be preparing your taxes, including yourself, by the way. And I will just tell you, because the world has changed in the last 6 months in tax prep land, the world has changed, and that is this. For probably the last 15 years, there hasn't been a whole lot of audit activity through budget cuts, or they have not invested in technology in the IRS and personnel. That all changed under the Biden administration. Now, I, for one, am a fan of it because I've seen the problem with having these rogue preparers who aren't professionals, don't have to adhere to a code of professional conduct, and the mess that they make for people. Because by and large, people, they want to follow the rules. They want to, if there's an opportunity to game the system, I mentioned in the last segment, a way for a sole proprietor to become an S corporation and save a lot of taxes and just be smart, be efficient in how they operate. But if you're not a CPA, enrolled agent, or attorney, and you're preparing tax return, or you're having your return prepared by somebody like that, no matter what game they're trying to convince you, and this is happening in spades, or happened in spades with employee retention tax credit, those people aren't going to be around when you're audited. And now those 87,000 auditors, I talk to a new one every day, man. I'm telling you, they're coming out of the woodwork. And fortunately, I haven't had a lot of my clients get audited, but I know it's just a matter of time. And I think in the last 15 years, I've had a half a dozen audits. I've had 2 this year alone. Now, both of them came out as no changes, no big deal, because we know what we're doing, right? We have records. We said this is how this goes. But now we're being retained by a lot of people from across the country to help defend them in an audit where they were kind of sold a bill of goods by somebody who's not a CPA enrolled agent or lawyer, and now they're afraid because they're going to get the book thrown at them. And we're fortunate. We have a great team, kind of headed by Mitch Desbians. He's a retired IRS agent, and he knows how to work the backside of the IRS, how to get things resolved. But ultimately, like these employee retention tax credit, fraudsters out there, and hey, I'll take a percentage. Oh man, when those are all getting pulled for audit right now, and they ceased processing employee retention tax credits so that they can start sending out information requests to support the claims, and that's when you're going to see just this huge fallout for these people that were really, unfortunately, just for lack of a better term, victimized by these marketing people. And and that's where I think having a reputable CPA firm, if people ask us, how aggressive are you? It's like, well, we never do things that are illegal, because that's going to jail is not part of my retirement plan. It's probably not yours, but we know where we know where the white is, we know where the gray is, we know where the black is, and so we just keep if there's in fact there's like one position out there that is being we're getting asked to look at, that's charitable limited liability company structure across the United States. And and just like this is what works, but it's untested with the IRS. They haven't signed off on the strategy, and so a goodly amount of these audits are people taking that charitable deduction, and now we're defending it, and that's okay, because if you follow the rules, there's really no basis for the IRS to deny the deduction. But when you talk about risk, you just have to be aware. That's what you tell your clients. This is untested with the IRS. They have not. There's not a publication that you can say where they bless if you do this, you're okay. It doesn't say that anywhere on the structure. So when you're out there, it's like then you're just as a fiduciary telling your clients kind of what they need to know to be able to make an informed decisions. Their tax return, not yours. But if you're out there, if you need some help, if you've got one of those marketing people that you're like, oh crud, because like in the last 15 years. I just knew they weren't going to be audited, weren't going to be looked at. There weren't any auditors to do anything, so it wasn't a bit. You always do things right, but now it's a whole different world, and because everything's getting looked at, and I tell you, they've already invested in artificial intelligence and how they select things for review, and 775-786-4900 Bosma at keystone.cpa. We'll give you one of those free 1-hour consults, man, and just make sure that you don't have problems that you didn't even know you had. Now, speaking of problems you didn't even know you had, next week, more business owners, more business advice and acumen. Until then, you business owners, you keep that business engine humming. It's Bosma On Business. News Talk 780, KOH.
On air, online, on demand. News Talk 780, KOH.